Have you ever thought about it? The house you're renting might not be a house at all. The old Taoist priest looked at me with a piercing gaze, his voice low and mysterious. What do you mean it's not a house? What is it then? I felt a chill run down my spine as I asked. Is the landlord allowing you to hammer nails into the walls? Try hammering a nail into the wall tonight and you'll find out. A week ago, I brought my 5-year-old daughter, Xiao Xiao, to a coastal city and rented a house near my workplace. The house was built by the sea, with a traditional and elegant design, especially the red lanterns hanging from the eaves. My daughter was thrilled, pointing at the lanterns and jumping up and down. Mommy, can we live here? The house was spacious and clean, close to my workplace, and most importantly, the rent was very cheap. I smiled and said yes. The landlord, Zhou Qing, was a beautiful woman in her 30s, living with her mother. Oh, we've been missing a child in our home. Look at this little girl, how cute. Zhou Qing brought out a plate of fruit and handed my daughter a big apple. You don't need to be formal with us. Make yourself at home. The room had everything we needed, and we didn't need to bring anything. However, there were 2 requirements. Zhou Qing paused before continuing. First, you can't hammer nails into the walls. Our house has been well maintained, and my mother doesn't like holes in the walls. Not even a small one. Zhou Qing's eyes seemed to gleam with a cold light as she said this. I was taken aback, but quickly agreed to follow the rules. Second, don't have any packages delivered to this address. My mother likes to open tenants' packages, and if something gets lost, we won't be responsible. I thought to myself that this wasn't a problem, since I usually had packages delivered to my workplace. Zhou Qing smiled sweetly. That's how I rent out my house. First, I'm a villain. Then I'm a gentleman. You won't mind, will you? I quickly said no. To be honest, Zhou Qing was stunningly beautiful, and her smile was captivating. Even I, a woman, couldn't help but feel a flutter in my chest. It's embarrassing to say, but as a single mother, I've been running around with my daughter for years, and I look older than Zhou Qing, even though I'm 2 years younger. On the first night after moving in, something strange happened. My daughter kept saying that the room smelled bad. Mommy, it stinks. Open the window. I thought maybe it was because the house had been empty for too long, and there was mold or something. But I have a sensitive nose, and I couldn't smell anything. For my daughter's sake, I kept the window open all night. The next day, I bought some bamboo charcoal, disinfectant, and air fresheners. But as soon as I entered the house, Zhou Qing's mother waved her hand at me. Don't bother with those useless things. Your daughter is too noisy. You should find another place to live. I'm old and need some peace and quiet. I felt offended and a bit angry. Auntie, we just moved in yesterday, and today you're telling us to move out? That's not very nice. We signed a rental contract, after all. Besides, my daughter is just a child. She sings a little song, and that's normal, right? Get out! Get out! I don't want to hear your excuses. This is my house, and I make the rules. The old lady was even angrier than I was, and it seemed like she was about to tell me to get out. I didn't want to argue with an elderly person, but this was too much. I sent a message to Zhou Qing, telling her what happened. That night, Zhou Qing came back and apologized sincerely. She said her mother had Alzheimer's disease and wasn't mentally stable, so I shouldn't take her words to heart. If there were any problems, I should contact her directly. For the next few days, I didn't see Zhou Qing's mother again. It seemed like she had been locked in her room. But from that night on, my daughter Xiao Xiao would wake up in the middle of the night, crying loudly. Mommy, I hear a little boy and girl crying. Mommy didn't hear anything, sweetie. Maybe you had a nightmare? Xiao Xiao's voice was hoarse from crying, and she was shaking all over. I comforted her, holding her in my arms. It's okay, Mommy knows. You're safe, Mommy is here. The rest of the night, Xiao Xiao snuggled into my arms, her small body trembling, her hands clutching my clothes tightly. I was heartbroken, lying awake until dawn. To be honest, I've always felt that this house was a bit strange. When I close my eyes at night, I feel like the bed is moving with the floor, like something is breathing. And every morning, I find a trail of wet footprints outside my door. My intuition tells me that it's Zhou Qing's mother who's behind all this. She's trying to scare us away, and it's really despicable. Due to poor sleep, my mind was foggy, and I kept forgetting things. After dropping my daughter at kindergarten in the morning, I realized at work that I'd forgotten my presentation. I had to take leave to go back home and get it. As I was about to leave with the materials, the landlady suddenly opened her door and looked at me with an eerie expression. Leave now, or it'll be too late. Don't say I didn't warn you. Remembering what Zhou Qing said about her mother's mental state, I tried to respond calmly, Auntie, Why can't you accept us like your daughter does? It's not easy for a single mother to find suitable housing. What if I told you she's not my daughter? The old lady interrupted, staring into my eyes. My first thought was that this old lady was truly unwell. What if I told you she's my mother? The old lady stepped closer, suddenly grabbing my arm. Terrified, I pushed her away and ran out. Mental illness is truly frightening. If things continued like this, Xiao Xiao and I would need to consider moving. Zhou Qing's house required a 6-month minimum lease, with 3 months deposit and 3 months rent up front. It had taken most of my savings. Finding another place now would be impossible financially. Plus, if I broke the lease early, I'd lose 3 months' rent. The thought made me wince. While wrestling with these thoughts, crossing a footbridge back to work, an old Taoist priest stopped me. His sign read infallible divination. One eye was clouded with cataracts. The other barely opened to a slit. His priest's robe was worn white with patches upon patches. Young lady, would you like your fortune told? Given our recent sleepless nights, I agreed. Using 3 copper coins, he cast the hexagram and got water over thunder. This is bad, the priest exclaimed. Thunder below, water above, different trigrams stacked. Thunder and rain combine, suggesting danger and harsh conditions. There's a smell of blood about you, mixed with decay. Your dwelling place is not at peace. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean, not at peace? Have you considered that your rented house might not be a house at all? The blind priest asked in a low voice, rolling his eyes. If not a house, then what? The hair on my arms stood up. Does the landlord forbid you from hammering nails into the walls? I nodded. Tonight, hammer in a nail and you'll see. He gave me 2 paper talismans. Remember, after hammering the nail, stick these talismans on yourself. No matter what you hear or see, don't make a sound. Back at work, I anxiously waited until closing time, bought a hammer and nails, then picked up Xiao Xiao and went home. After Xiao Xiao fell asleep, I turned on the night light, put the talismans on us both, and quietly got up with the hammer and nail. Surprisingly, the wall seemed elastic, denting momentarily before bouncing back. The nail tore the wallpaper, revealing something moving underneath. Fighting my trembling hands, I suddenly pulled back the wallpaper. A piercing wail hit me. Countless infants fused into the wall reached out their tiny hands. It was a wall built with babies, their heads and feet stacked densely. Some babies' mouths moved silently, others opened wide, crying. The sound seemed to come from hell itself. What was this thing? I stepped back in horror, covering my mouth. From a distance, a wall of eyes glowed green, watching me, some curious, some vengeful, some innocent, some sneering. Mommy! Xiao Xiao woke up, rubbing her eyes, looking for me. Oh no! I rushed to the bed, falling onto it, signaling Xiao Xiao to stay quiet as I held her. But it was too late. The walls crackled, countless voices calling mommy, crawling sounds, footsteps, and murmurs washing over us like a tide. I squeezed my eyes shut, covered Xiao Xiao's ears, praying the blind priest's talismans would save us. Xiao Xiao seemed to sense my fear and stayed perfectly still in my arms. Cold, sticky sensations crawled up my arms and back. I held my breath, my back chilling to the bone, frozen like a puppet. Mommy, found you! A putrid smell hit me as tiny hands gripped my throat. Countless sticky bodies crawled into my embrace as Xiao Xiao screamed. I grabbed Xiao Xiao and ran out, rushing down to the 2nd floor, where I saw Zhou Qing standing at the landing, watching me. What are you doing in the middle of the night? Zhou Qing wore pajamas, her hair loose, looking at us with concern. I watched her warily, holding Xiao Xiao tighter. Zhou Qing stepped closer. Su Yun, why are you holding a pillow? I looked down at my arms and felt my scalp tingle. I was indeed holding a pillow. Xiao Xiao was gone. Xiao Xiao! Xiao Xiao! Ignoring Zhou Qing, I ran back upstairs. But the room was empty except for one of Xiao Xiao's slippers. I picked up the slipper, clutching it tightly, lost in despair. It was my fault. We should have left earlier. Even without enough money, we could have stayed in a small hotel or slept in the subway. Anything would have been better than this house. I shouldn't have listened to the blind priest about hammering nails. I should have just moved out. Whether this was a house or something else didn't matter. I just wanted my daughter back. I collapsed on the bed, sobbing. Zhou Qing removed the talisman from my body. Su Yun, who gave you this? It's a bewitching charm. Open your eyes and look carefully. Dawn had broken. I raised my head to look around the room. Xiao Xiao stood barefoot by the bed, crying for me. The wallpaper was intact, with no foul smell. Even the hammer and nail were gone. I ran to hug Xiao Xiao tightly, crying again. Su Yun, do you know why the rent here is so cheap? A real estate developer has been eyeing this land for years, and my family is the last holdout. My father built this house himself. I grew up here. It holds all our family memories. I can't move. So they try everything to drive away my tenants, cutting off my mother's and my income source. It even drove my mother to mental illness. Su Yun, don't believe anything they tell you. Zhou Qing handed me a glass of water. Now more clear-headed after the incident, I decided to be direct with my questions. Zhou Qing laughed. It's my fault for not explaining clearly. I must have scared you. When we decorated this house, we used shell powder for the walls. While it's environmentally friendly, it flakes easily, especially when nails are hammered and large chunks of wall powder fall off. Xiaoxiao's nightmares might be because my mother scared her. After you put her to bed at night, I'll watch my mother and make sure she doesn't trouble you anymore. She's always been resistant to outsiders living in our house. I'm truly sorry she frightened your child. Don't trust the person who gave you those talismans. Stay away from such charlatans. If you have any problems, just tell me directly. Don't be shy. After Zhou Qing's explanation, I felt embarrassed. I had been overly suspicious, disturbing everyone's sleep, yet the landlord wasn't even angry. It was my fault for trusting that blind priest and letting his bewitching charm frighten me half to death. The next day, passing the footbridge after work, I was furious when I saw the blind priest, wanting to flip his table. But before I could speak, he exclaimed in alarm, "Your child is lost." I sneered, "My daughter is fine at kindergarten." "Stop lying, you old fraud." I threw his talismans in his face. He held the talismans, face pale, muttering, "Such powerful negative energy. She's destroyed the talismans." "Keep pretending," I challenged harshly. "How much did the developers pay you for this act?" "What?" The blind priest looked confused. "I'll call the police if you keep up these scams." He paused, then sighed, sweet words and a pretty face. "Watch out for your landlord. Move out soon, before you lose not just your daughter, but yourself too." I didn't want to waste more time arguing. I needed to pick up Xiao Xiao from kindergarten. "If you don't believe me, try testing her second prohibition," his voice carried from behind me. The second prohibition? I remembered it was about not having packages delivered to this address. The old priest's expression didn't seem deceitful either. He was telling the truth or he was a better actor than any award winner. I couldn't risk my and Xiao Xiao's safety by fully trusting either side. I decided to test what the old priest said. Ordering a delivery seemed harmless enough. I took out my phone and ordered some daily necessities for next day delivery to the address the landlord had given me. That evening, after picking up Xiao Xiao, I noticed she'd become very quiet. "What's wrong, Xiao Xiao? Are you unhappy? Tell mommy." Xiao Xiao remained silent. Thinking she was upset because I was late picking her up, I hugged her and said, "I'm sorry, mommy will pick you up earlier next time." Xiao Xiao just glanced at me, still looking unhappy. Wondering if last night had frightened her, I said, "If Xiao Xiao doesn't like this house, tomorrow mommy can ask for an advance and we can rent a different place, okay?" "No." Xiao Xiao suddenly spoke, glaring at me. "I don't want to leave this house. This is my home." I was stunned by my daughter's reaction. Was it because we'd moved so often with my job changes that she was tired of moving? Or had she grown attached to this place after living here for half a month, already considering it home? Fighting back tears, I stroked her head. Okay, we won't move." At the doorway, Xiao Xiao stared fixedly at the red lanterns under the eaves, refusing to move. Getting impatient, I gave her a light tap. She turned and bit my hand. I yelped, and she released. A deep, bleeding bite mark appeared on my hand. As I wiped my hand with a tissue, I looked up at Xiao Xiao. She was watching me coldly, her eyes like a snake's. In that instant, instinct told me this was not my daughter Xiao Xiao. Remembering the blind priest's words about my daughter being lost, a chill ran from my feet to my head. If this Xiao Xiao wasn't my daughter, who was she? And where was my real daughter? When did my poor daughter disappear? Last night? My mind was in chaos. That night, for the first time, I didn't hug my daughter in bed. Watching her sleep, so small and soft, what should have brought joy now felt like a knife in my heart. This was Xiao Xiao's body, but inside, maybe it wasn't Xiao Xiao anymore. I wanted to hug her but didn't dare. My daughter seemed so close, yet worlds away. Tears streamed down my face like broken pearls. "Xiao Xiao, where are you? Mommy misses you so much. Can mommy find you again?" "I'm sorry I hugged the wrong one in my panic. Please forgive mommy." It's mommy's fault for not being capable enough, not earning enough money. If we'd moved out earlier, would Xiao Xiao still be lost? After some time, as I was drifting off to sleep, I thought I heard Xiao Xiao's voice. "Mommy, save me." I jolted awake and listened carefully, but heard nothing. Unwilling to give up, I turned on the night light and flashlight, peeling off wallpaper to search the walls inch by inch, but they were smooth and white without a single mark. Xiao Xiao, where are you? Mommy misses you. I covered my mouth, sobbing uncontrollably. Mommy, what are you looking for? Xiao Xiao had sat up in bed, staring at me intently. I was startled by the sudden voice and quickly tried to comfort my daughter. Mommy had a nightmare. Be good, Xiao Xiao, go back to sleep. She obediently lay back down and closed her eyes. I dared not move, suppressing my sobs, and lay down facing away from her, unable to sleep all night. At dawn, I sent the current Xiao Xiao to kindergarten and then went to resign from my job. I had no mind to work anymore. I had to find my Xiao Xiao, no matter what. I had promised my daughter I would never leave her. Before completing my resignation, a delivery call came through. Hello, it seems your delivery address is incorrect. The courier's voice came through the phone. I held my breath and asked, what's wrong? This address doesn't exist. IZ Street only has numbers 1 to 139. There's number 140. The GPS shows it's just an empty lot. Hello? Are you there? I collapsed into the chair, weakly saying, please return the package. Thank you. No wonder Zhou Qing didn't want me to have packages delivered. If I had sent something earlier, I would have discovered something sooner, and Xiao Xiao wouldn't have disappeared. It's all my fault. All my fault. Like a zombie, I finished my work handover and rushed to the footbridge. The blind priest, sensing my emotional state, signaled me to be quiet and led me to a secluded spot. Once there, I fell to my knees and wept bitterly. Master, please save my daughter. Save her. I'll do anything you ask. The blind priest sighed deeply, helping me up slowly. Don't worry, I'll do my best, though I'm not sure if we'll make it in time. Did she give your daughter anything to eat? I shook my head. Usually, when Xiao Xiao and I return, Zhou Qing isn't home. We don't interact much. The landlady's mother hates Xiao Xiao and would never give her anything to eat. Think carefully. It should be something common, something easily overlooked. Suddenly, I remembered, the first day we arrived, Zhou Qing washed a plate of fruit and gave Xiao Xiao a red apple. Xiao Xiao was tired and hungry, ate it all, and told me how delicious it was. The blind priest slapped his thigh. That's the price of her life. After eating her apple, the child belongs to her. You've essentially sold your child. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning, my blood running cold, tears flowing again. The old Taoist pulled out a yellow paper package and handed it to me. I've been tracking this demon for over a decade. It's called a pregnancy ghost or meat house, formed from the resentment of women who died during pregnancy. Whether we can save your child depends on this. With trembling hands, I opened it to find dozens of dark red stone nails and reddish-brown wooden nails. The dark red ones were cinnabar nails, the reddish-brown ones were peachwood nails. At noon, when yang energy is strongest, bite your tongue, dip a bit of blood on each nail, hammer 1 cinnabar and 1 peachwood nail in each room. Finish within 1 incense stick's time. If you take too long, the pregnancy ghost will notice. After nightfall, stick the yellow paper with the nails on yourself and this red talisman on the Xiao Xiao beside you. Take her outside the house. At midnight, all the children inside the house will come out. Find your daughter, then hold your breath and quietly take her away. Walk west. Stop when you see a yellow lantern. I'll be waiting there. I thanked the blind Taoist, spending all my savings on the nails and talismans, then returned to the house in a daze. Zhou Qing's mother, unseen for days, looked at me tremblingly and beckoned. She had aged dramatically, looking 80 instead of 60. Though I'd never liked this mentally unstable old woman, I remembered how she'd repeatedly tried to make us leave, suggesting she knew something. I approached her and said hello. She examined me for 3 full seconds, then leaned close and sniffed. You've met the blind Taoist on the bridge? I stared at her silently. She laughed. Never trust him. He's not a good person. My current state is thanks to him. Seeing my shocked expression, she continued coldly, I was his junior sister. We came to eliminate the pregnancy ghost but fell into its trap. He fed me to the meat house and escaped, leaving me to become its daughter. Now, barely 30, I'm already an old woman, forever trapped in this meat house. You're probably wondering why I'm telling you this. I won't live long. After a few days, I'll become bones melting into the wall. Feeling guilty for not heeding her earlier warnings, I apologized. She nodded, motioning me to come closer. Your daughter's soul is in one of the 30 red lanterns under the eaves. At midnight, listen to each one. When you find your daughter, take that lantern down. Place the lantern, flame and all, over that fake Xiao Xiao's head. Remember, no matter how she screams, don't let go. Tears welled in my eyes as I asked, will this bring Xiao Xiao back? Naturally. She stared into my eyes for a moment, then asked, "What did that blind old man give you? How does he plan to save your daughter?" I hesitated, keeping the nails but showing her the yellow paper that wrapped them. She sneered, "After all these years, he hasn't improved. What use is one talisman? Didn't he give you cinnabar and peachwood nails to break the meat house?" I shook my head. He wanted more money, but after paying rent, I had none left. "I even quit my job today." She snorted, still so greedy. "I've told you all I can. Whether you listen is up to you. But if you miss tonight, your daughter's soul will become lamp oil, lost forever." As I watched the old woman's trembling figure leave, I asked, "Is Zhou Qing never home during the day?" She stopped but didn't turn around. "Don't waste your effort. You can't win against her." At noon, when the sun was directly overhead and yang energy strongest, when all ghosts should be sleeping, I lit an incense stick and began my task with the nails. The house was a duplex, with 3 bedrooms, 1 living room, and 2 bathrooms on both second and third floors, and 2 living rooms, 1 kitchen, and 1 bathroom on the first floor, 16 rooms total. As the blind Taoist said, the blood-dipped nails sank easily into the walls with a soft puff, releasing pink fluid and a putrid smell strong enough that even I, with my allergies, could smell it. I quietly opened each room, repeatedly biting my tongue, hammering nails until I reached the ground floor living room, where the old lady sat napping, unaware. After finishing, I breathed a sigh of relief. Everything had gone smoothly. Now to wait for nightfall. In the evening, I picked up the false Xiao Xiao. Looking at her face, my daughter's lovely face, I silently vowed to find my child no matter how difficult or dangerous it might be. Zhou Qing appeared too, pale and haggard, her formerly charming demeanor replaced by a cold, sinister look. She asked if her mother had spoken to me today, if she'd been talking nonsense again. Had she discovered the nails? Fighting my pounding heart, I glanced at Xiao Xiao standing in the doorway staring at the red lanterns and said, "I just got back after picking up Xiao Xiao. Haven't gone inside yet. Is something wrong?" Zhou Qing smiled eerily. "My mother has passed away. She was devoured so quickly. They say people speak truth near death." It seems the old lady hadn't lied to me. My heart beat faster, my body trembling uncontrollably. "My condolences. Let me know if you need any help." I hurriedly took Xiao Xiao upstairs. Only after closing the door did I feel those watching eyes leave my back. Changing clothes, I discovered my underwear was soaked with cold sweat. The night was especially dark, with crows crying and the moon setting. It was a waxing moon, which would hide by midnight. I placed the red talisman on the false Xiao Xiao, watching her fall into deep sleep, then put the yellow talisman on my chest. I carried her quietly downstairs and opened the door. In the red lantern light, I gently placed her by the pillar. Then, standing on tiptoe, I began listening to the lanterns. After 15 lanterns, I heard nothing but insects chirping in the grass. I grew anxious. Was the old woman lying? But why would she? Suddenly, the entire house began to tremble and move. The children in the walls were coming out, just as the blind Taoist had said. I took deep breaths, trying to stay calm, rushing to check the remaining 15 lanterns. Finally, in the 4th to last lantern, I heard a faint mama. Joyfully, I took down the lantern, but before I could check the last 3, the house began shaking violently. I quickly placed the lantern, flame and all, over the false Xiao Xiao's head. She let out a shriek, her small hands clawing at the lantern, but I held firm. After a moment, she fell unconscious. Crack, crack, like countless skulls grinding their teeth. The house grew like a sprouting seed, twisting and deforming. I quickly picked up the child and held my breath, hiding nearby. In the endless night, the house grew larger, its walls thinning like inflated balloons. Red vessels appeared in the walls, pulsing like hearts under the red lantern light, expanding, contracting, contracting, expanding. Then countless small heads and limbs emerged. "Mama, mama, mama." Innumerable voices pierced the night with eerie crying and laughter. Children crawled out of the walls, some on all fours like animals, others stumbling upright, reaching out for hugs. Just then, 2 thunderclaps split the distant sky, followed by lightning that illuminated their rotting faces and decomposing flesh-covered bodies. None of them had shadows. The thunder frightened the infant ghosts, who scattered everywhere, crying. I strained my eyes, searching for my familiar child among these infants, but none was my Xiao Xiao. With several loud cracks, the house before me slowly stood up, shaking off dust, extending countless long arms to grab the escaping ghost infants. "My babies, my precious babies, don't leave mama." The meat house's voice was harsh and shrill. A massive blood-colored lightning bolt tore through the sky. I covered my mouth. There stood a gigantic female ghost with disheveled hair, a pale face, and something writhing in her belly. Like gathering beans, she grabbed the ghost infants, constantly throwing them into her mouth, chewing and swallowing them into her stomach. With each one swallowed, flesh grew on her body, becoming wall-like. The countless ghost infants cried in terror, fleeing like a tide. I desperately searched among the ghost infant crowd for my Xiao Xiao, but nowhere could I find my beloved little one. I couldn't control myself anymore and ran out, screaming desperately, Xiao Xiao, Xiao Xiao. The air reeked of decay, mixed with the earthy smell of rain-soaked soil. It started raining, but I still hadn't found my precious child. The meat house, covered in red lanterns, cackled and reached for me with huge hands. Zhou Qing, is that you? Please give Xiao Xiao back to me. I fell crying to the ground. Just as those huge hands were about to grab me, someone pulled me away. It was the blind Taoist. Fortunately, the pregnancy ghost seemed sluggish from nurturing so many children. We hid behind a large rock, and she turned back to catching and eating ghost infants. Master, what can I do? I haven't found Xiao Xiao. I cried, clutching his sleeve. The blind priest rolled his eyes and asked, where's the Xiao Xiao you brought out? I told him I'd hidden her in the grass. Let's see if her soul has returned. I nodded quickly and led the Taoist through the rain, carefully circling around the pregnancy ghost who was busy eating ghost infants and growing flesh, to find Xiao Xiao hidden in the grass. Just then, another lightning flash lit up the sky, and Xiao Xiao suddenly opened her eyes. Something about that gaze was familiar, but I couldn't place where I'd seen it before. But it wasn't Xiao Xiao. At that moment, the pregnancy ghost finished eating the ghost infants and began counting her lanterns. Finding one missing, she let out a piercing shriek. The dozens of wombs on her body wailed miserably, countless voices crying out, my baby. Give it back! I'm missing one baby. The blind Taoist waved his whisk, performing ritual steps while chanting at the pregnancy ghost. The ghost screamed and spat out 2 pills, one red, one blue. The Taoist leaped forward and swallowed the blue one. His eyes immediately blazed with light, his blindness cured. The pregnancy ghost swallowed back the red pill and glared at the Taoist venomously, her huge, putrid body stretching in the rain, reaching for him. The Taoist threw out dozens of talismans, blocking the ghost's vision, and quickly returned to our hiding place. As the pregnancy ghost broke free from the spell and roared, her red lanterns blazed blindingly, illuminating our hiding spot. She grinned, found you! The Taoist shouted, now! Simultaneously, small hands tore off my protective talisman, and the Taoist's whisk flung me out. The pregnancy ghost cackled and grabbed me. I stared in disbelief at the Taoist as Xiao Xiao beside him gave me an all-too-familiar smile. It was the old lady, Zhou Qing's mother. The old Taoist picked up Xiao Xiao, glanced back at me once, and disappeared into the darkness with a few leaps. Before leaving, he said something to Xiao Xiao. I had learned lip reading before, and his words were, Sister Zhou, congratulations on your escape. Xiao Xiao no, that woman smiled at him, reaching for a hug. So, the soul in that lantern wasn't Xiao Xiao's, but the old woman's. The pregnancy ghost greedily sucked away my life force as I lay helplessly in her grasp. Gradually, my strength left me, my arm's skin loosened, visibly wrinkling. Yet my mind became incredibly clear. Tonight, the blind Taoist, the old woman, and the pregnancy ghost all got what they wanted from me. The blind Taoist set up this scheme to obtain the meat house's blue pill to cure his blindness. He never intended to help Xiao Xiao and me, using my maternal love as a tool to get the pill. His junior sister, that old woman, whose body had been possessed by the pregnancy ghost, orchestrated everything to escape the meat house, eventually possessing Xiao Xiao. My Xiao Xiao might never have left, just been influenced by something. They made me believe she wasn't my daughter. The old woman knew I didn't trust her, so she deliberately led me in reverse, guiding me step by step into her trap. She made me help her possess Xiao Xiao, giving her spirit a new body and successful escape from the meat house. And the pregnancy ghost got a new body and life force to feed on, finding consolation. When a whale falls, it gives life to thousands. I never thought that I, Su Yun, would become such a whale, devoured by all. How pitiful, how laughable.